Hello, and welcome to episode 24 of the Time to Calibrate podcast. My name is Marc Levesque, and my co-hosts today are Bob Allaby from the Time to Go Travel and Timepieces YouTube channel, and Brent Robillard from the Calibrated Wrist. Our very special guest today is none other than Jose Miranda, co-founder of Isotope Watches. Welcome to the show, Jose.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
No problem at all. Yeah. We're glad to have you. As with most watch podcasts, we start with wrist checks, since you're the guest of honor. Jose, how about you go first? What's on your wrist?
Oh, I open with the Moonshot. It's our first chronograph, titanium grade 5 watch with DLC case and bracelet. Inside of this one, it's a Valjoux 7753, and it's my dream watch. It's inspired in something that is yet to come.
Very cool.
Yeah, beautiful piece, for sure.
What about you, Bob?
I had to wear the Mercury today. I saw I can remember seeing this for the very first time in person in Toronto, and I was like over the moon with just the whole entire design. I don't wear dressier watches all that much, but this is my dress watch, and it's one of my favorite watches that I own. What about you, Brett?
So I also have an Isotope on wrist this morning. I actually have the old radium black ink bronze on this morning, and I'm really enjoying that. Actually, I love the bronze. It's already begun to patina, this particular one, and I love the way actually, when a bronze case patinas, but when you have bronze hands, because they are sort of sealed off, they don't, and so you still have that hint of what it used to be like. I really love that. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's very cool. And you were telling us earlier off air that you were taking some photography with that watch, and you happened to drink a little bit this morning because of it.
I did. I was using scotch as a prop, and I had a few sips before I realized what I was doing. So it's just in fairness, truth in advertising, it's still pretty full, and it's sitting on the desk, and I'm trying not to touch it.
Well, no, it's pretty close to the top before when I talked to you. Now it's like there's a finger left.
We will check the pictures afterwards.
Unlike last week, I did get the memo this time, so I'm wearing an Isotope watch as well. It's my Hydrium California. I fell in love with the Hydrium line in Toronto last year at the Toronto Timepiece Show, and it's such a fun watch, and every time I look at it, it brings back the memories of meeting Jose in person and starting that friendship, and yeah, I love this watch. So as many of you know, I live near Montreal, just west of the island. And for where I live, there are 2 routes onto the island where I would work. And quite a few years ago, one of those 2 bridges was out. There was under construction. Don't get me started on Quebec construction. It's still under construction, but at least it's open now. And the traffic, because of that, was a complete disaster. It was an hour and a half to 2 hours to get to work. And on one of those days where I was using Waze to get around the traffic, taking little small streets and trying to navigate through all the caca, I was listening to the Scottish Watches podcast, and Jose was on talking about his watches, and it was so fun to listen to. Jose was charming, knowledgeable, enthusiastic, and I remember saying to myself, this would be a good person to get to know and to befriend. And since that episode, I think Jose and I communicated a couple of times on Instagram, just direct messages whenever there was a new release, encouragement and stuff like that. And I was trying to get him to send me one to review at some point, but that never materialized, but that was back in those days. And then the Toronto Timepiece Show, right? That's what happened last year. I got there on Saturday midday. I walked from the train station to the venue, and I was trying to look for my podcast buddies, whom I had never met in person at the time yet. I ran into Brent. Brent, again, being the busiest retired dude in the world, was in the middle of hosting a bunch of talks in the theater room, and it was between talks, so it basically said hello, and then he was off in a flurry of smoke. And I kept walking around. I found Bob at the Isotope table, got a big bear hug from Bob, and then did my first round of the entire show, and came back, and I figured I needed a place to hang out. And I asked Bob if I could hang with him and Jose. And little did I know that Bob's stardom in YouTube would have him being pulled. Hey, can I take a picture of you? Or can you come and see me here? And hey, come and see this. And next thing I knew, I was alone with Jose, and this very busy booth. So I started helping him out, and sold a couple of watches, and we had a lot of fun, and got to talk to him and get to know him, and we struck a friendship there, and spent half the day on Saturday and most of Sunday together. And lo and behold, when Vancouver Timepiece Show came around, Jose asked if I would be willing to come down and help him again. So I did. And we spent 3 full days together, and that just confirmed that friendship and that, good working partnership wasn't just a flash in the pan. It was real. And since then, he and I have communicated several times, and I'm proud to announce that I've been appointed as the new North American brand director for Isotope Watches. I want to thank Jose for his confidence in me for this role. And to all those Isotope fans out there, if you think you've seen some exciting releases so far, wait till you see what we've got coming next, because it's pretty exciting. So that's my connection to the brand and to Jose personally. And I'll let my partners do all the questions today. Guys, please be gentle.
First of all, congratulations, Marc, on the new position. That's awesome. Couldn't be a better person for it, I don't think. So good to see.
If I may say something as well, I agree with you, Bob. Because I have been, and Marc knows, I've been chasing for someone for a long time now, and after meeting Marc and after understanding his curriculum and talking with many people, everybody loves him. So it will be it's the first and the only option that I couldn't be happier. So yeah,
I think
welcome aboard.
I think
you come on a good time.
Marc told me a little story about you two. I think it was to Mike Pearson that you said, I found my Mike Pearson to Marc.
Exactly.
And Mike is the benchmark. I've met so many brand reps. I think he is one of the best in the whole world.
Mike now has someone that can divide the benchmark with him.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's what
the
I'm
point.
Saying.
Mike, and I know he will listen to this because he listens to everything. Mike is he's in my heart. I think everybody loves him as well.
Oh yeah,
he's an amazing guy, and he's in a brand that has deep meaning for the British market and for me as well, and for everybody, because what they are doing is simply outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very happy that now I don't need to compare Mike with Marc. People will start to compare Marc with other people, which is good for us.
Well, thank you very much, guys. If your job was to try to make me cry, it's almost worked.
So I was thinking about back when you and I first connected, and when I was prepping for the show today, I was curious how long ago it was. So I actually have a way of checking. I checked back on my YouTube channel, and it was almost exactly 5 years ago. Right to today. The first video I posted on Isotope was on July 10th, 2020. It was the Goat Doe. I think there was 2 versions of it, and we've had a really good relationship ever since. But one memory I have is looking up the word Lacrima and what that means, which is a teardrop shaped logo, your brand logo. Every time I get hands on with one of your watches, it's always fun to try to find them all. It's sort of like Where's Waldo in a way. I realize I'm not sure where that came from though. Like, was there a reason behind that choice for the logo? I don't think I've ever heard.
Yes. So as I was growing, my grandmother, she had a kitchen clock, a blue one in ceramic, electric, and with a timer on the. So it's lacrima shaped, and it has a timer in the bottom. Little I knew that it had been designed by Max Bill. and it's a Junghans. It is a Junghans watch. They have released the new version 2 years ago, if I'm not wrong. And as I grew up, I always kept the memory of that clock. And when we start this adventure next year, so this year we just did 9 years old. Next year will be our 10th. And when we started this adventure, we made the rider a jumping hour. We started in a very, very difficult way. It was very, very complicated to make it, but it was a lesson, from designing to making it happen, to clients asking for new editions, new colors, new quantities, etc. So in that watch, I wanted to insert that shape. And we dig very, very, very profoundly on everything what everybody was doing. And that shape specifically, so the shape of our logo, had never been used before on the wristwatch. I never found it. Okay, so there are people here that know much more than me in terms of what has been done in the past in terms of watchmaking. If you find one, please let me know. But I dig so deep and I never found nothing. So I wanted to use that shape. Because our logo back then, it was a circle, and the hands pointing to the 7 o'clock. 7 because it's my favorite number, because it has deep meaning in terms of, in every culture, number 7 is one of the most respected numbers, best, luckiest, for health, for fortune, etc.
Yeah.
So that was our logo. And the motif we had on a dial was the droplet. So but that was supposed to be a one-off. Okay, don't get me wrong. That was supposed to be one jumping hour that then became many more. And when the brand started to grow, I had to evolve the logo as well, because the initial logo was not. It was interesting, but then some other brands came along and they made something very similar, because it was a very. I'm not saying they tried to copy. Okay, don't get me wrong. It's just a very obvious logo and shape. So any brand could be making something similar, even unaware that we already had that shape. So as soon as we start making some more interesting watches, we evolved to a new logo. So I opted to adopt that shape that has deep meaning to me, because it reminds me not only one of the best watch designers ever, it reminds me of my family. It reminds me of my grandmother specifically. It reminds me of my youth. It reminds me what is really a piece of art, because that clock now is at the MoMA Museum of Design. And again, that shape has never been used before. It was free. We adopted the Lacrima, which also means, the name means teardrop. So it's a positive insight into design, and a very beautiful insight on my family and the lost ones, and everybody that we love. That's the meaning behind the use of the Lacrima. And from there, it's also the connection between some of our designs, either on the shape of the hands, on the shape of the pip, on the shape of the dial, on the shape of the push buttons,
the lugs,
etc.
Yeah,
the lugs,
everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And the one you have on your wrist, imagine a droplet of mercury cut in half. If you put the lugs together, they make a droplet. So that's how the drop how the droplet or the logo is represented in the case of your watch.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the one you have, Brent, it's the first one that doesn't have a direct and obvious Lacrima on the dial, because we couldn't find a way to include it, and I didn't want to. We don't need to force it. It needs to come naturally. It needs to be there naturally. And so we only applied it on the case back. That's
I was just going to say, yeah, that's Bob has brought up the Lacrima, and you've told us the story behind it. And I would almost expect that this story be deep and meaningful, because it's your designs. I think often involve a great deal of thought. They come together in such beautiful ways. And when I was photographing this watch, I was actually wondering, where was the Lacrima? And then it was only after having photographed the movement on the back that I realized that those divots all the way around were that exact shape. Yeah. And I thought that was really incredible. It's really beautiful. Now, people can, of course, they've come to expect that that's going to be incorporated somewhere in one of your watches, but otherwise your timepieces, they run the gamut of design and aesthetics. There are very few that actually look like one to the other. So I'm curious, given the wide array of designs that are available in the Isotope stable, what would you say is kind of your guiding principle when you set out to design a watch?
So the first thing that comes to mind when we start creating a watch is something I see, something I read, something I observe, and or some memory that suddenly it makes sense. I usually find connections between cinema or TV series or books or design or architecture. It's an amalgamation. That's how you say. Sorry, because I'm Portuguese originally, so my English is not my mother tongue. So, but I try hard. And so the concept began with something very simple, and from the concepts I study as much as possible to try to find what has been done in that area. And so I start eliminating things that I don't want to replicate, basically. So if something already exists, we don't do it. We go into another direction. Or if we do something similar, but must be similar in concept, but completely different in design. We don't make homage. We don't make nothing that makes people remember something that already exists. It can happen, obviously, because we are talking about a circle of 2.8 millimeters or 3 millimeters, so it's very difficult to keep innovating. But we also try to design the watches in a way that we can add some sort of innovation. So we have a very basic structure. I speak we because I start the concepts, but then I discuss with the team. And from the team, now we have Marc on board that will start to be participating in those meetings as well. But then I work with 2 designers and 1 engineer, and they tell me how crazy it is, if it's possible or not, if we can achieve it or not. And it's a very slow process. So from the idea to the first prototypes, you usually take 2 years, and from the prototype to the market, we usually take another year or 2 years. So it's a very slow process, and it happened before. So in between this period, someone released the watch that was quite similar to ours. So we had to reset. That happened with the Moonshot, with with the chronograph. That's why I decided to do something that has never been seen before. That's why it looks so original, and I'm very happy that it talks to many people. It's really, people understand the message. So that's it. There is no secret. The secret is, if I see something that I like, and if I can adapt to the wrist, I will adapt it. If it makes sense. For example, the Bob, one of the he reviewed the Idrium wheel return. That watch, it's a reproduction of a door sign that is very common in North America. I will return at 8 a.m., whatever, or something like that. And the use of that sign, it made sense to me because 25 years ago, whatever, I was in New York and I loved the sign, so I was able to buy one back then. And every time I moved home, that sign came with me. And 7 years ago, I opened the box. There was the sign. The hands are teardrops. And I said, we must do this for the wrist. It makes sense. So, and that's when, not only with the review made by Bob, but also Fratello back then, and our photographer, a guy called Brad Holmes, that's when the brand really kicked off, about 5 years ago, more or less, because that watch was a breakthrough in terms of design. There were no divers with these kind of characteristics. There was nothing about 7 years ago, when you start thinking about it, so colorful as the watches that I wanted to make. So this is a good example of how to adapt the design that can be extrapolated to the wrist. And I do that a lot with architecture, with forms, with shapes, and but mainly with cinema, which I'm a big fan. And that's how we try to connect between the world around us and something we can wear on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
Wow. So you've told me a little about how this all got started when it comes to Isotope. Could you share how it all began with the listeners? And were you into watches actually before Isotope as a collector?
Yeah, so I started when I was 10 years old collecting.
Okay.
So about 5 years ago. Yeah, I wish. I wish. Yeah, so when I was 10, my parents gave me a Timex with a white dial. And a couple of years later it stopped, and I opened it, and I had let water in, so it was completely ruined. But it was for me incredible when I opened it, because I was able to understand. Well, I wanted to understand what the purpose of all those wheels, multiplication, etc. So from there, I started buying watches, the watches that were available back then. And I will even put money together to buy some specific watches. And when I started working in advertising, they used to pay very well back then. When I got the first salary, I went to the mall and I bought a Breitling Jupiter.
Wow.
Which later I came to discover that it had a Miyota quartz. I thought it was a Swiss-made watch. It was a Breitling, but it had a Miyota inside, and I loved it. I loved it because it was the French version, and it on the dial, instead of quartz, it used to say "Réveil," alarm. So it was for me very interesting to have that detail, because I used, there was no mobile phones back then, there was no internet, and we had, it was very interesting for me because I used to travel a lot due to my work, and I really used the alarm on that Breitling, and from there I started loving even more and more and more watches. So until the point that a few years later, many years later, when I had some more money, I started collecting jumping hours. And one designer that really still has a deep meaning for me, it's Gerald, and I always love these jumping hours with the Disney characters. And I had two that I had to sell a few years before, due to all the crisis that happened in the market in Portugal and mainly in Europe as well. And when I was able to buy another one, I was already living in the UK. That the guy asked me 16,000 for it, or 17,000, I don't recall. And my wife told me, we went through this a few years ago. Why don't you make your own jumping hour? If you really want a jumping hour again, why don't you make your own? So I decided, okay, let's try it. So I went back and forth between London and Geneva for 2 years. I met some amazing people, some people that are now partner at Christopher Ward. Back then they were independents; they were not under the same umbrella, and they helped me a lot understanding how to make a jumping hour. I used the same model that now it's in the bel canto. So, for example, that's how everything started back then, 12 years ago, more or less. And then a gentleman, so it took 2 years to make one. It was supposed to be a one-off. But then a gentleman on the airplane saw it, and he asked for 10 for him and for his family. And I said, oh, that's unexpected. So I spoke with my suppliers back then, and they said we can't make 10, but we can make 99. 99 more, because I already had one. So we start working on it, and that's how things started. That gentleman bought the 10, but in between that, it's a funny story, because when we design a watch, the inside must be planned. So it's not just fitting a movement and then adapt the dial. So the case needs to have the exact measurements to fit a movement holder. So then you can fix to the dial, to the hands, blah, blah, blah. And everything needs to be inside the watch, very solidly placed. When I had everything ready, I went to this same company that was selling the jumping hours, the models, and I told him I'm ready to buy 100 models. And he said, Jose, I'm so sorry, I cannot sell you the models. And I said, what's happening? Don't kill me, because everything is ready for the back then it was the ETA 2824 and the model, so I needed to fit in our jumping hour. I can't. I'm sorry, I can't. But why? I can't tell you. I can't. And I go, listen, tell me, because it's I'm going to die. Now I'm going to lose everything. And I said, I'm so sorry, but Christopher Ward just bought our company.
Wow.
So yeah, so this guy was Indian, and so it was a big lesson for me. So we need to always have a plan B. that's what I when I try to design something, I always try to think on a plan B and sometimes on a plan C.
Seems like that's a common challenge for watch brands to run into.
Yeah.
The movements and different components.
It's very complicated. Very complicated because you don't own from A to Z what you are doing. So you depend on suppliers. And if you don't have good suppliers, or if they by any reason need to change their plans, because I'm not blaming this gentleman in any way, everything I learned was almost from him. So 2 years speaking with him, so it was we still talk these days sometimes, but it was also good because I had to go to Lacrima Logo and find a new supplier. Mm-hmm. So there was a supplier there that just by taking slightly their model, I was able to fit in our design. So everything in the end went well. A lot more expensive, so I lost a lot of money. But it was good. And then when we were selling it, those 10 were for that gentleman, and then very quickly there was online, and very quickly people just bought it and it disappeared. And those people, they asked for a diver, so we made a good do. Then asked for a bronze watch, so we made the first generation of the old Radian, then another diver, then a GMT. Now, chronograph, then the
Mercury,
the sporty classic Mercury, then the 36 millimeters, the flyway. And what's coming, it's even better. So you'll see.
So go ahead, Brent. I had a follow-up question, but you kind of answered it already there. But
well, the Moonshot, and for me particularly the Terra Maris, is probably my favorite in your entire collection. And you've brought up the Moonshot a couple of times today, so I thought maybe we dig into it since we're talking about design, etc., and where you draw inspiration. And this one is particularly inspired by a graphic novel, the Incal, and that graphic novel particularly is kind of known for its intricate like line work and kind of like that machine-like complexity. How did you, or how do you, take the influence of something like that and translate that into a watch? And by extension, like what kind of challenges are there in taking that and making it into the not just a visual expression, but a functional timepiece?
Yes. So I've read the Incal for many times already. It's something I like to read because it was not a planned novel. So back then it was that what the story was dictated. It was not written by Alexander Jodorowsky to Moebius. Moebius was a French artist that was very prolific in designing and visualizing the future, mainly because they were always under influence. So they could visualize something that most people couldn't. But when I see that, so that comes to the time that some watches take to develop. So when I started thinking about the chronograph, it was when COVID started, because I was in a place, I sold my shares, I had money in the bank, and everything was closed. So I had time to think about watches. And so we started planning to make a chronograph. And 2 years later, we had a very classic chronograph. And that same year, we had 70 releases of classic chronographs. And that's I said, no, stop it. We are not going to release another chronograph, classic one. It may sell, but that's not what I want to sell. I don't mind, and I already told this to Marc sometimes. There are watches that need to be made. Even if they don't sell, I want Isotope to be the first one to make them, because they will be classics in the future. They will, they might not sell, but, well, some people will understand the message, but in the future, some people will remember and will have something that only 50 people have. And that's the kind of watches that now I usually collect, because they are rare findings, and I like those rare findings. But in terms of the connection between the incal and the watch, so when I decided stop it, I don't want to do it. Coincidentally, that weekend we went to rest a little bit. I took the book with me and I was reading, and I started seeing all the designs, all the shapes, all the UFOs, all the components that are retro engineered, but not too much. It's very fluid in terms, it's very streamlined due to his huge capacity of designing interesting architecture, inexistent architecture back then, and inexistent spaceship shapes. So when I started absorbing all those designs, I spoke with my designer, and I told him, listen, I have a vision. I saw something that it might be very, very interesting. I explained the concept, and he added, okay, so we can probably also add some turbine components, try to make it more machine-like. So that's how we started to evolve, and then we started with the round shape. Then we got to this crystal that no crystal has ever been cut like this before. At least everything we searched, there is nothing like this. It's still a double domed crystal, but very slightly. The case, I love the case shape because it's very light due to the material, titanium grade 5, but it's also very industrial because we applied a coating of DLC, so it gives it a very post-apocalyptic look. And then on the inside, the watch was easier, okay, in brackets, to design, because my designer, the one I'm working with, he is also an industrial designer. So he was able to apply to the ideas and the concepts that we saw on the Incal, to the lines and to the very straightforward shapes that we see here. So it was a way of have a very clean watch, but with very small details that you can probably only see when you when you look at it with a loop, with a magnifier. And when it was ready, I had the brilliant idea of saying, what if instead of hands we had discs to the dial, and those discs will cover the subdials, and we only read what we need to read. We cannot see anything else, that we can only see what it really matters. That's the idea. So getting rid of everything that is not essential to read the time. So when you look at this, it's very easy to read the time, the hours and the minutes. But if you want to chrono something, you can also do that very easily. And although the numbers are not very, very are not very big, let's say, although it's a small font, you can read intuitively as soon as you start to know better the watch.
Yep.
And it's not every day that you cook a egg. If you want to cook an egg and chrono the time, the 2 or 3 or whatever minutes, it's very easy to read. If you do want to chrono something something up to 12 hours, you can do it as well. It's everything here, including our logo on the push buttons, that in a way will be extracted from those designs in the book. So the turbines, the lines on the push buttons and on the dial. So the dial needed continuity on the push buttons. That's why we have it. The gear shaped crown, the very angular crystal that represents some windows and those spaceships, and also in some of the architecture that he has. So all these details are then complemented with a machine-made case and finished by hand. So it's very, very soft to touch the titanium. It's very comfortable to activate and to pause and to reset the chronograph. Everything makes sense here. Even the bracelet that is tapered in a way that it's fluid. So the titanium bracelet and also the rubber strap. Yeah, it's a work of love. It took 2 years. It took 6 months to get to the right design. After I had the stupid idea of adding the discs to the dial, it took us almost a year to make it work, and then almost a year to find a manufacturer that was really able to do what we wanted. So it was really, really difficult because most people said it can't be done. But here it is. It works. It's perfect.
Well, it has certainly paid off. It's a beautiful watch.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
So you've done a few collaborations with different artists for dials, that sort of thing. Is there a dream collaborator out there you'd love to work with, a certain designer or a brand you'd like to work with?
Oh, I never thought of that. No, I because I usually, I think the only one, I might be wrong, but I think the only one that I chase sometimes was Seconde. Because he's such a brilliant guy, such a genius, such incredible. And
you guys did the Hydrium together, right? The Hydrium. Yes. What was that called?
We made. It was called the Autopsy. So Autopsy, it's isotope on the opposite, because we were changing our logo to the new one. So that the Autopsy was the death of our old logo and the transition to the new one. But before that, he released a watch with someone. Oh, exactly, with the brand that is very rare. What's the name of them? They are now sponsoring Williams, the Formula One team. You don't recall?
I can't remember.
Yes, it's a Swiss brand, very, 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 very advanced in terms of ideas. They do amazing stuff, and I love what they do. Studio Underdog released a collection with them last year.
Moser?
My God. Yes, thank you. So he did a release with the seconds hand were rubbers to erase.
Mm-hmm.
He did that, and when they released that, I said, "Oh, freaking hell!" Because I had a design to do that exactly and not exactly, but very similar to what he did. And I said, I can't release this. So, okay, so who is this guy? And I start seeing his works, and I start observing him and following him and understanding, trying to understand his way of thinking, but I can't. He's way ahead of all of us. It's really, really incredible. Yes.
I've had an opportunity to chat with him several times. I actually invited him to the podcast. Unfortunately, he's very much an introvert and doesn't like being, interviewed or even on camera. But I was talking with him about design and this other stuff, and I came up with an idea, and I hope that eventually he gets to do it. And I'm going to say it now, so that way it's
out there,
recorded somewhere. And he should make a watch that has a sub-second dial and a center second, and call it Seconde.
That's a good idea.
And that's it. No flying things. Just something really, really subtle. And Seconde. And he liked it. I don't know if he's ever going to get it done, but he's being pulled in so many directions. Everyone wants a piece of him.
Yes. So. If you notice, this year he has not been doing almost nothing. I think last year it was 2 or 3 per month, so he needed to step back. I spoke with him in Geneva a few weeks ago, and we might be cooking something, but it's not solid yet. So, but he liked the concept. Well, he liked the watch. The concept will be his concept. So that's how things happen. I don't. There are a few collaborators and most of them, they just send me an email or they know me and they ask, would you be interested in, will this make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And if I like the idea, oh yes, let's try. So we have a few amazing collaborations coming in the next few months. Incredible collaborations. They are not very famous per se, but what they do is so good, so good, that I hope that our watches are a platform to show more what they do. But we have people from Japan. So I'm working on a project that Marc saw the other day, and he loved it. It's a very crazy project with a Japanese designer, with a very famous guy in Japan, and one of the biggest experts in digital and quartz watches. And we are doing something with him. Very, very, very excited to do that. We are working with a graphic designer that released the book about something that I've been chasing for many, many years. Manholes. It's the most exciting inspiration. When you travel, you can learn so much from what you see under your feet. It's incredible. And in every country that I go, I always find a manhole that it's really, really exciting and interesting. And this guy released the book a couple of years ago about that. So, and I was going to make a collection with those designs, but then I saw his book and I contacted him. Listen, I have this idea. I'm going to do this. Do you want to participate? And he said, it's crazy enough. Yeah, let's go for it. So we are working on it for a few months now. So it will be released probably next month. Let's see. And I say, let's see, because some of these projects are very complex to materialize, because we are using techniques, different ways of making the dials or the cases or the finishing. And in the end, what the client see, what everybody sees, it's a very simple watch. But to get to that result in an affordable way, that's how complex it is. That's why it takes so much time to get those results. But we also have a couple of editions that are going to be made with a magazine this year. It's going to be our first Vitrium enamel dials, and they look absolutely stunning. It's stunning. It's you will love it. It's because it's a classic approach, but with the end of the world look. Very. You will see. I don't want to explain more. And there are more. For example, there is a guy, one of the biggest artists in designing dials in the UK. We have a project together as well. We are working on a collaboration for next year that all the dials will be painted. So it's... And all these are small collaborations, but none of them with the big guy. A couple of 3 or 4 years ago, I sent an email to Max Pusser and said, "You don't have a diver watch. You need to have a diver watch. We want to make a collaboration." Yes, I am that crazy. I send emails to some people that... but he was kind enough to answer me and to say, "Listen, I love the idea, but I can't do nothing because we are just starting a project that it will be affordable." So he was talking about the MAD editions. And so it doesn't make sense to do something with you. Who knows? So what I mean is that, yes, it will be interesting to make a collaboration with someone big, another Revolution edition, like the Mercury that we had. That was something that I also chased because it's very difficult to get to weigh. But when he saw the designs that we had, he said, "Oh yes, let's do this," and it's our bestseller ever. So yeah, but at this stage, I'm not worried about the dimensions of them. I'm worried, or I'm interested on the quality of what they do. Even if it doesn't sell well, if it makes sense in my head, to be part of our collection, great, let's do it.
I was just double checking my phone a second ago because I had a question about a watch and I wanted to make sure it was out there to the public. And it's on your Instagram. But I've seen the OVNI prototype a couple of different times now. And you recently posted some photos of the production models. It seems like there's some pretty major... It's still the same feel when it comes to the watch, but there's some pretty big design changes, makes it a little more streamlined and refined. Is that like a common thing from prototype to production? Is there big changes like that you often make, or?
Yes. Do you want to talk about it, Marc?
Yeah, sure. Yes.
Otherwise, you cannot only be the host. You need to say something about it, right?
I've seen the design improvements on the OVNI, and we were talking about them at the Vancouver Timepiece Show. It's going to be slimmer, which is very important. The case back is going to be screwed down with screws as opposed to being snapped, which is what it was on the prototypes you've seen. The minute hand's going to be slightly longer, and the shape is just slightly more refined. And I think we're going with the Jouperet movement as well, which is going to be an upgraded in as far as the power reserve is concerned. It's going to be spectacular. The final designs were approved. I believe the productions are being done now. We should see them very soon. I can't wait to share these watches with people. Every time I've showed them at the various shows, it's, you have 4 or 5 people standing there and go, "Oh, wow." Ooh, ah. and then it just gathers more people to see it again. And
that's the reaction around the world. So we have been showing it for the last year. not only in North America, but also in Europe and UK. And hopefully in the end of the year in Asia as well. So what's happening with that when we show it, that's the reaction. It's, wow, what's happening here? And it's also a very crazy idea.
Oh, it's a wild watch.
Oh yes, it's and I want it to be the celebration of our 10th anniversary. But if I need to release it as soon as it's ready. So in November it will be ready.
Yeah, I had a guy at the show in Vancouver, had it on his wrist for 20 minutes and just kept on staring at it. When is it coming down again? When can I get my hands on it? I have to wait how long? And he was enamored by it. It is such a wild design. And like most Isotope watches, there's nothing else out there anywhere near as close or looks or functions in this way. And it's a conversation piece. I mean, there's nowhere you're going to go where someone's going to see that thing work and not be impressed and not want to know more about it. I think it's going to be a big hit for our company.
Yes, it has to. The investment behind it, it's
it has to, or your job's on the line there, Marc.
I can always fall back to podcasting.
No, but if, for example, that concept came because I was, reading something, and suddenly I saw a technical drawing of the spaceship Jupiter 2 from the TV series Lost in Space, the 1960s or 70s, not the recent one, which is also interesting, but I like the original one. And that shape, so I thought it would be amazing to make a watch that looked like an UFO. OVNI. OVNI means in French, Portuguese, and Spanish means UFO. It's exactly the same meaning.
Yeah, objet volant non identifié.
That's it. Objeto voador não identificável. It's the same, exactly the same structure.
Easy for you to say.
Exactly. And so when I had this idea, I wanted to innovate in a few details, like, for example, the crystal. The crystal is a donut. It's 3mm crystal, and it's not a diver, so it makes the watch quite heavy. But it's empty. The centerpiece that connects the rest of the watch, it's metal. It's stainless steel. It's not crystal, so it's not crystal under the metal. The whole case, the legs, they look like the spaceship. But then we had a problem. This is, to make a jumping hour, we can, but what's the function of all the 360 degrees we have around the 380? No, we need to do something here. So the idea was, okay, so instead of jumping the number, the dial jumps. But there are no jumping hours like this. There are, at least that I know. Yeah, there are no models available in the market to do this. So the last 2 years have been used to develop the models, to make it work on this design. And it's been a huge investment so far, crazy investment. But now it's streamlined the way we want. I want it even thinner, just like Marc just mentioned. We are aiming for 12. Not sure if I can keep it affordable at 12. Maybe at 12.5, 13. That's why we are moving to the La Jupere, because it has 68 hours of power reserve. It has a better torque than the ETA, the Celita, or the Landeron. It's more precise as well. So it's a better product. It's a better movement for this kind of adventure. So it's also a bit more expensive, but that's life. So we need to I will have the the last technical detail before going into the CNCs next week. But so far, because we could shave one, not 1 millimeter, but a bit less. So we shave everything we can. And with the new movement, we can shave even a little bit more. So that's why we are, the models are already in production, but so the models will take longer than the case to produce. So we are still perfecting it as much as possible before starting production of the cases.
Yeah, Jose had mentioned before that it takes a long time from prototype to prototype and refining. And there was something that was bothering him with the models we had in Vancouver and in Toronto. It wasn't snappy enough, the jump. And then he had gotten them to refine it, and he sent me a couple of videos the other day of it jumping. It's so cool. It's a metallic think, like it's spectacular. So anyways, yeah, I can't wait for these to come out. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Cool.
Yeah, because for me, a jumping hour, when you go to sleep, okay, imagine your watch is on the table bed. That's how you say it.
Bedside table.
Bedside table. Yeah, that's similar.
Same idea.
Same concept. Different execution. And when before going to sleep, I like to hear the hour ping. Okay, and my first jumping hour did that, and this one was not doing that. So we had to change a few parts, change it to stainless steel instead of hard brass. And now the result is exactly what I wanted. That's an interesting detail. And this took 6 months to find a way to do it. That's why it's very expensive to keep always doing prototypes on top of prototypes. But that's what we need to do. That's it.
This might be a good time then to bring up the AuroChronos festival that you were at just recently. Isotope received an innovation award there, and I think that even if a listener had no idea what Isotope was before today, just hearing what has been going on in this podcast would lead them to understand that, of course, it only makes sense that you would win an award on innovation. So, what does that mean for you, what does that kind of recognition mean to you?
It was very unexpected, I confess, because I submitted the Moonshot after, I think it was the last day or after the last day that we could submit, something like that. And I was not expecting to win nothing. But when I saw the jury, I became a bit excited with the people that were there because they were really, it was very interesting. I don't know their names, I don't recall their names, but we have people there that are very experienced in watchmaking. And during the awards, when they said Isotope won the award because not only of the Moonshot, but because of the consistency on all their watches that introduce some sort of innovation, keeping it affordable. That is exactly what we aim for. So I was really happy with the award, and I'm very proud that we got it because we were able. It means that our message it's going out there. Someone is trying to understand what we are doing when they look at all of our collections and all of our to our collection of watches, and they see that they all make sense, although the designs are different, because I believe that a classic watch needs a different case from a diver, from a chronograph, from something else. Each one has its own characteristics, but we can bring on board some details that make them connect to each other, and to make them exciting. And when people discover the innovations, they become very happy. They become, I can see a smile when people see, for example, this one, the flyway, when they see the crystal shape, that it looks like a Pringle or like a saddle, and they see that there are no reflections, or you can't do that. You can see this on the camera, right?
Yeah.
Any other watch, even with anti-reflective coating, will have moments that it's difficult to see the time, but not with this hyperbolic paraboloid crystal, which is...
I was going to get Bob to say it, because
Yeah,
you know he wanted to. He's been wanting to say it the minute
I've
you
been
pull that
waiting
watch
all
out.
day.
Say it.
Hyperbolic paraboloid.
That's amazing.
I love
That's
that combination of words, man. Even my daughter says it every once in a while.
Just walking down the street and
She's heard me say it so much.
which call me
cool. It's cool because, when I thought of the shape, and because I wanted to make a crystal similar to a Pringle. I wanted. I just wonder why. And then the Pringle became a saddle, because this watch, the first dial we designed for it was vitreous enamel. And it looked to me like a horse's high. Okay, and I said, okay, so maybe this can be a saddle. And from a saddle, I started studying the shape, and I discovered the hyperbolic paraboloid, okay, which I didn't know before. And from there, I understood how, the characteristics of a crystal on this shape, which is amazing. So, yes, it was very difficult to explain, and it looks easy on the outside, but, for example, the inside of the watch, the inner ring, has the same shape as the crystal. And it's almost imperceptible from the outside. But to machine this, it's difficult. And to explain this to our engineer, even to the designer, sometimes it takes a couple of weeks, to make them follow exactly what we need to do and not cut any corner. That's why it's difficult.
Brent was brought up the AuroChronos festival. You attend a lot of shows, it seems like. I know you're going to Birmingham here, and it's just in the next couple of days, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I know Jason from the Toronto show's going out as well. But how important are shows like that to you, and Isotope?
Yeah, it's fundamental because we don't have retailers. We are working for now. Let's see what happens with the German retailer. We are working with Time and Tide in London, and that's it. We have a concierge in New York, and now we have Marc that will restructure all we need to restructure in North America, but we don't have retail, so we need to be present in as many places as possible to show the watches, to allow people to experiment them, to try them out, to feel the weight, to feel the quality that it's inherent to each watch. Without doing that, we don't have a showroom in North America yet. We are aiming for that. Hopefully next year we can do that. But this is the only way we have to be next to our customers and to allow them to try the watches. That's why we travel a lot, and the investment has been huge. To be present in every little or big event. That's why we are also having private viewings in around Canada in a few locations.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's the only way to be closer to our customers and to show the brand to people that don't know. That's why we are trying to do different cities from what we did last year, to get to as many places as possible. But there are events like the one in Toronto and that is coming in the end of the year. We were there last year. It was one of the best and most interesting events we had in 2024. So why not 2025?
Yep.
I love Canada, so why not?
Plus we're there.
Yeah.
You get to hang with us.
Yes, that's the reason. That's only because of that.
In fact, both Marc and Bob have shared their origin stories with you, but that's actually where you and I met for the first time, was at the Toronto show last year, and then of course again in Vancouver. But while we're talking about shows and what they mean for Isotope, we were talking to Felix Wallner from Hanhart in our last episode, and one of the things he said about going to a show was really interesting. He liked the fact that he was meeting up with watch enthusiasts who knew maybe more about watches than he did, because his tunnel vision was on what Hanhart was doing. And so he would take their feedback and their commentary, and he would take that to heart. And that would sometimes influence their designs or what they do, with future releases. Do you see the process in that same way for your brand development?
Absolutely. Yeah. Of course. For example, this OVNI, just like Marc referred a few moments ago, everybody around the world in the last year has been saying, wow, what is this? Wow, I could wear this. This is the watch I am expecting to. This is my next watch. Oh, I want to buy this one. That's what people say. It's a fact. So that, for me, it makes understandable that it's going to have a huge success. For example, the Good to Do that we released a few years back, it was a huge success as well. And now we designed the new one, the new Good to Do. It's the Good to Do 2.0. And I took a few examples to a few shows. But among the other collections, no one was picking it up. And I saw that in 3 or 4 events. No one was picking it up. So we can see that some of the watches we have, people get them, or the orange or the yellow or the tobacco or the flyway, the Terramaris or the chronographs or the OVNI or whatever. But that Good to Do prototype, no one was touching it. What's happening? So I made a poll online and I understood what people want. So now we are going to make new dials. Because the case shape, the thickness, the bracelet, it's amazing. It's really, really good. But if the dial it's not exciting as it should be, it's a mistake to release because no one will buy it. So we have a perfect case with 2 crowns. It's incredible, but we need new dials. So that's what we are working on. So, yes, it's very important to understand and to see people's reactions. And lots of people, for example, is asking us, do the flyway in 42 millimeters, do it bigger, do it larger.
Sure.
Okay, I will do it, but only in 2 years. It will take 2 years to get there, because if we adapt a normal movement to this case shape, it will be too thick on a 42 millimeters. So we need to have a different movement for the bigger version of this. And next year we are going to release another model that may compete with the flyway in terms of design. So it's too soon to start working on the flyway 42 meters. It may happen in 2 years, but not now. And this is also a reflection from the comments that people say in our table. We understand the message. They want bigger watches. I want bigger watches as well, because I always worn 41 or 42 or even 43. Our first jumping hour was 45.
That is a substantial 36 millimeter watch, though, compared to most other ones. It does have a lot of wrist presence.
It's a fake 36 millimeters. Do you know why? No, it's interesting, and we tried that obviously, because the bracelet tapers from the width of the lugs.
Yeah.
But if, for example, I have a few prototypes for a rubber strap for this watch that do not go on the same width as the lugs, that it looks a much smaller watch than it looks like this. But yeah, it's a 46, 48 lug to lug, if I'm not wrong. But it wears, it fits everybody. Everybody can wear it. It's incredible.
So I've knowing you for the last few years and just talking today, you're obviously not afraid to take risks. Some of your watches use bright colors. All of your watches have a bold design language, but you often challenge yourself with materials. The new marquetry dials come to mind. The original Mercury with the mirror polish dial had a huge throwaway rate. Even now, the hyperbolic paraboloid shaped crystal of the flyaway. Are you always on the lookout for things to challenge yourself when it comes to design like that, or maybe you're just a glutton for punishment?
So I am very traditional, and although it doesn't look, I like traditional design. I like traditional materials. To make something of, for example, in a Damascus steel, or to go to carbon, or to go to that, it needs to be required to do that. I think it needs to be, I think the design needs to demand that kind of material, because there are so many good watches that are made in those materials that, for me, it's offensive to try to do something that is not as good or better than what they did. For example, to use Damascus. I was with him in Poland, and he also won an award. They are the pioneers using Damascus. What's his brand? He's from Finland.
H2O. Oh, Balticus. Something.
No. It's
a higher level.
Much higher level. Yes, it's
Sphera.
I'm sorry. No, it's not a micro brand. Well, it's an independent brand, but not on the micro brand sphere.
Okay, got it.
It's
equivalent.
No, but it could be, but it's not him. I don't recall their name, but I will.
Relax.
I will. So, and I spoke with him, and I told him, listen, I love what you do. I can't do nothing similar, so that's why I'm not touching the Damascus steel. But when time comes that I find something that can be used on, I will. For example, the carbon cases. There are a few mainstream brands that have done a few amazing watches with carbon cases. I didn't find the reason yet to develop one in that material, but when I do, I will. Dials with stone. Last year I was on holidays I spent a few days in Chamonix in France, and I visit. I love Chamonix, so yeah, it's not the first time we were there, but the glacier, since the last time I was there, now it's 20 meters down. It's crazy. So we went to visit the cavern that they create inside the glacier, and the walls, they have these water icy look with light behind, and I said, this is incredible. And I took some pictures of it, and I came home and I was thinking about it, how to do that, but on a watch. How can we create some ice to do a dial like that? And I sent a few pictures to a few dial suppliers, and one of them came up with amethyst, a stone cut with one less than a millimeter, and it's transparent, and it's ice.
Wow.
It's ice. So it's exactly the same as we have on the picture. So it's going to be our first stone dial, because before that I wouldn't dare to do a dial based on stone, because there are so many amazing brands, including some micro brands, doing stone dials that I never used it before. Now it makes sense. So it will be released just like the name says, before or during the winter. Hopefully we can even release it with Marc when it starts snowing over there. So
it's something else.
We have
I've seen it, and it's not just the dial that's going to be spectacular. You guys are all in for a treat.
Cool. Yeah, that's great.
It's a different one. So materials for me are very, very important. But for example, this one, it's 904L. It's as expensive as titanium, grade 2. But why advertise it? So people start to scratch it and try to make it. There's no point in advertising it. We have a few innovations in terms of materials, but let's keep them hidden, because no one needs to know if they are there. For example, the watch you have on your wrist, the mercury case, it has indeed an anti-scratch coating, but we never advertised it because we don't want people to start testing the coating. It's pointless to say, try it on because it has because if you ding it, it will ding.
Yeah.
Just like any other watch, but it has an extra layer of protection that will keep the watch clean, except when they fall in the cement.
Ooh, shots fired.
I don't even want to talk about that.
Yeah, it's not very.
Oh my word!
Yeah, there is no way to protect from that. There is no way to protect from that. But in a normal life, even, for example, my wife loves to do something that I had to get used to it, which is to wear the watch with the other.
With bracelets.
Oh, bracelets.
Yeah.
Silver bracelets, gold bracelets, blah, blah, blah. With stone, without stones, right? Oh my God.
Yeah.
The mercury, it's like new. The mercury, the mercury case, it's more resistant than the iridium case to do those kind of things. And people are always afraid, it's a very, very polished case. It will scratch easily. It will scratch just like any other mainstream watch. If you ding it, it will ding. But if on a normal wear, it's more resistant than any other. I can promise that. Don't try it. Don't do it. Okay, just.
We've talked a lot about.
Bob tempted to.
Friends don't let friends wear watches and bracelets on the same wrist.
Well, we've talked extensively about Isotope watches and about innovation today, but we just only scratched the surface of your own collection. So maybe we'll end with this question. When we were on the C bus out in Vancouver, you shared with me a kind of quirky collecting habit that has to do with movies. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about that?
Yes, because I love cinema. I always work on the film production side of advertising. That was what I did all my life, or most of my life, in the last until COVID. And I had a huge collection that I had to sell before moving to the UK for financial reasons. And after a few years, I was able to rebuild part of that collection. But some of my watches, I don't want to ever own them again. I don't want to go back to Rolex. I don't want to go back to Gerald Gente. I don't want to go back to Breitling. I don't want to go back to other watches that were meaningful when I was collecting, all over the place, just because I liked the watches or because they were. There was no good investment before then, so the Rolexes were not as valuable as they are these days. The Gerald Gentes were not as valuable as they are these days. So in the last 15 years, the market changed a lot. And also my life changed a lot. So now I think twice before spending money in something that it's unnecessary. I learned the hard way that having loans to buy things for the company, it's not the best way to manage a company. So I am very careful where I have my money these days. And but I still like to spend money in things that give me pleasure. So cinema gives me pleasure. So why not collect watches that are related to cinema and to the movies that I really love to watch and rewatch and rewatch. One of them is Jaws. It's my favorite movie. I watch it 2, 3, 4, 5 times every year since it came out. So I know a few lines by heart now. And next year, for example, we celebrate 50 years that the movie was released. So I will have a very special edition just for friends, where the caseback was designed by an artist that is a very dear friend of me, and he designed his interpretation of the Jaws poster.
Oh, that's cool.
Where he's going upwards underwater to snatch the girl. So, but that's something I am doing. But for example, Seiko just released the watch celebrating the 50th anniversary of Jaws. It's in your face. That's not something I would buy just because it says Jaws. No, I like the Ulster watch. I like the original one that was used when filming the watch. I like the Kontiki because of the documentary that was done. I like the Seikos that were used on Alien. I like this kind of watch that really tells me something. Another amazing film that I really love, it's Interstellar. And we have the Hamilton Murph. The Hamilton Murph you see there, it's a 42 millimeter with, and now we have, it's the 38, but their edition is the 42. They have the Morse code on the second hand. And I have that watch. I don't have it now because someone from my family, asked me so many times that I ended up giving it to him. And I regret, because now I'm trying to find another one with a Tesseract box, and I can't. I don't know why people are not selling them, which is interesting. But that watch means a lot to me. And for example, we are designing, and this one, Marc is already collaborating on it somehow. We are designing an unnecessary diver. Okay, it's the kind of watch that no one needs, but I want to make it. I want to design it. I want it to happen because it needs to be done and well done. Because we start designing it, and Marc is an encyclopedia about watches. Send me a picture saying, "Oh, look, your concept was already done in the 90s. I think it's the 90s, right?"
Something like that.
I don't recall, but and I looked at it. Oh, okay, we are safe because it's really ugly. So we can do something really well done. But the idea came from the Adrian together with something else. It was not inspired by it, and the way we are working on it, and we are working with a Canadian designer, which is also very interesting. It's a teenager grandpa.
Matt.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah, so we are working with him on that design, and he understood exactly what I wanted of it. Which is very, very good, very good. And we are evolving on the design. And but for example, that watch, it's somehow related to the Alien, but also related to the Alien movies, but also related to the Interstellar, in a way that you understand when it comes out. But yeah, that's the connection that I try, because I have so many watches here around me, and I can't wear any of them. Well, I can, but I don't, because when I go out, I need to wear my own brand. I cannot be, where I can go to an event with with something else, right? So it doesn't make sense. And the only watch that I kept that is not related with cinema at the moment, it's a quartz watch made by Porsche Design. It's the GMT. I love that.
The old IWC Porsche Design. Yeah, that's a
I love that
watch.
I love that. It's for me, if I didn't have my own brand, that will be the watch I will be wearing every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jose mentioned a lot of the quirky watches and movie attributes and the designs that he likes. One of my friends that I'd never met in person, that I finally met at the Vancouver Timepiece Show, a guy by the name of Kyle. He works in the movie industry down there. And he and I have been friends for nearly 30 years, just DMs, chatting. We've traded watches several times. We collaborated on different articles together where he did the photography while I did the writing. And he showed up and he brought some watches for us to take a look at from his collection. So he had a vintage 5513 Rolex Submariner. He had brought a Porsche design IWC Ocean 2000 on bracelet, which is really cool. But the one that really took us by surprise and that Jose liked in particular was an Omega
I ordered
Z33.
One. I'm waiting for mine.
You ordered it?
I bought one.
Good for you.
What was it?
It's an Omega Z33. So there's the X33, which is the one that everybody's seen in the Skywalker and so forth. But there's another one that's over-engineered that's much larger. I mean, it's a massive, massive watch with a red dial, the red numerals, digital numerals, like the old school LEDs. It was spectacular. Brilliant. And Jose and I were staring at it, and we had all these more. We saw A. Lang & Sons. Yeah. We saw a bunch of watches that weekend, some Vacherons, but that's the one that stuck out for me because I'd never seen one in person before. That's and Jose absolutely loved it. And well, proof is in the pudding. He went and bought one. So,
yes, no, that is, it's an horrible watch. It's ugly. It's brutal.
It's fugly.
Yes, it's prone to stop working at any second, and it's almost irreparable. But I love it. That's the kind of But I was able to find a good deal, so it's not very expensive, but it's it's going to be part of the collection for sure.
That's very
because
cool.
I just love it.
Incidentally, Kyle wound up buying Hydrium, the orange one, and has been taking photography for us and sending us pictures every couple of weeks, which we've been posting. And fantastic. So thank you, Kyle, for buying the watch and for sending those pictures and, of course, sharing your collection. That was really nice of you.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's very good. Very good. And hopefully he will be able to put one of our watches in
one of the movies. That'd be great. And drop one in the background.
That would be amazing.
He just completed filming on Tron 3.
Wow.
Didn't know there was going to be a third one, but yeah, there you go. So on behalf of the Time to Calibrate team, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to be with us today, Jose. I know how valuable your time is, and it's greatly appreciated.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It was a pleasure to have this chat, and it's almost night here, so it's good.
Thank you so much.
Good time. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem.
Cheers.
The Time to Calibrate podcast is available wherever you find podcasts. Please like, subscribe, review, and all that happy stuff. It may not seem like a big gesture, but every little bit helps, and it helps others discover the show. If anyone is interested in seeing some Isotope watches in the metal, along with a selection of Vario and Sunrex pieces, Alon Solutions will be showcasing these brands on June 26th in the Montreal area. If you'd like to attend, please reach out to myself or Bob, and we'll hook you up with an RSVP. And our next episode will be a hostful. It'll be our 25th episode. We're going to do a first-year pod and review kind of thing. If anybody has any suggestions or wants to ask some questions or comments or anything, or if they want to hear me go off on another rant, please let me know. You can DM on Instagram, and our email address is timetocalibrate@gmail.com. Until then, T2C out.